Someday my slides will load. There they go. Making infinite fixes, a repeatable system for product ideas. Hold on to your butts. This is the most complex part of the entire 30 by 500 process. And I say complex and not complicated because there are many moving parts and multiple steps. However, each one is itself fairly simple. The complexity comes from combining them all, following all of the steps and in the right order. This is not a set of lessons you can watch once and then toddle off and execute perfectly. So relax, pay attention, and when you sit down to execute on this process, please review and revisit these videos to make sure that you don't miss anything. There's no shame in reviewing a lesson because we've designed them to help you do your best. There's another reason that this stage of 30 by 500 is a bit challenging because it comes up against cultural narratives that you've been soaking in your entire life. Tell me if this sounds familiar. The crazy, wild inventor has a brilliant idea. Drama ensues, but the creator is so in love and in such a deep belief and such confidence in his unshakable idea that he persists and overcomes all obstacles. And in the end, he fails? Certainly, that's not how the story goes when you read it in a magazine, watch it in a movie, hear it on the internet, because that doesn't sell. A great love that just falls apart is only the kind of thing that you see in weird indie movies that no one really cares for. So you've been soaking your entire life in a pattern that your subconscious will assume is correct because it's everywhere, and you have to undo it because it's wrong. Love and passion doesn't mean anything about the success of your project. We need to eliminate the romance from this equation. And what better way to do that than look at the most romantic of all inventions? Despite being a worldwide symbol of instant breakthrough, this invention took 40 years and more than 20 scientists to actually work. I'm talking, of course, about the light bulb. The light bulb is our symbol for a breakthrough moment, a eureka moment, when suddenly the planet aligns and everything comes together and bam, it works. But that's not the way that it works at all. That's a lie. You probably think that the light bulb was invented by this guy, Thomas Alva Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park. But he wasn't a wizard, and he didn't invent the light bulb. The light bulb wasn't even an invention so much as an evolution. Mankind moved from darkness to fire to reed lights to portable oil to candles to portable oil lamps to gas lamps that were plumbed and turned on with a switch. Naturally, gas lamps were messy and dangerous, and they smelled bad and they flickered. The light bulb was the holy grail for a long time. Edison is famous for saying that he has not failed 10,000 times. He just found 10,000 things that didn't work. But Edison wasn't even the first to try to use a tungsten filament. And Edison didn't invent the idea of creating a vacuum inside the bulb. What Edison was ruthlessly systematic. And he left many journals that described his process. Among other things, he wrote, "When I want to discover something, I begin by reading up everything that has been done along those lines in the past. That's what all those books in the library are for. I see what has been accomplished at great labor and expense in the past by other people. I gather data of many thousands of experiments as a starting point, experiments from other people, and then I make thousands more." Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? So Edison's claim to fame is the light bulb, and movies, and the phonograph. Actually, all told, he invented 10 categories of business and service. While he did not invent the light bulb, and he did not invent using tungsten, and he did not invent the vacuum, and there's a whole legal controversy over who did it first, he did invent the business of electric light, and he also invented the business of document duplication. In 1873, Edison's company shipped the electric pen and press. Well, you've never heard of this product, for good reason. However, the historians who study Edison's notebooks say the story goes like this. It was at the end of the Civil War. Business was finally picking up again. Edison may have read in a paper that the insurance industry was booming. He convinced an associate of his to allow him to come in and study insurance clerks going about their business. He watched as they did their jobs, which involved an immense amount of busy work. Back in 1873, the only way to produce many copies of a document was to create each copy fresh by hand. He saw that the clerks were handwriting copies for every legal party in an insurance agreement. So if there were 4 people involved in an insurance policy, there had to be 4 completely handmade copies, and they had to be identical. The clerks were spending countless hours on duplication alone for every sale. The duplication itself was not adding value. He thought to himself, well, if they could write a document just once, they would save so much time and money. They would be able to do so much more business with, honestly, fewer people. So he set about investigating the way that insurance clerks did their job. What tools do they use? The ink, the paper, the pens. He looked at every little detail. What were the documents like? He then took what he knew of chemistry and wax and mechanics and set about making experiments trying to produce a method of duplicating documents. He tried chemical etching, but it was far too messy and dangerous. He tried wax templates. It really didn't work. He tried this, he tried that. And eventually, he created the Edison electric pen and press. Now, it's not one of his more famous inventions because it was short-lived. For 5 years, his salesmen sold these machines into businesses, and the businesses did buy them. While it was better than writing out many copies by hand, it wasn't very convenient and it was cumbersome. And Edison knew this because his customers were telling him this. His salesmen were telling him this. So instead of allowing the product to just die on its own, he decided to take what he found out of these new pains that he discovered from shipping an imperfect product and create something newer and better. He invented the mimeograph machine, which is a vastly superior way of making copies. And it stayed in use for over 100 years. If you've ever had a copy of a document that was printed in weird bluey purple ink and smelled funky, you've used a document from one of Edison's mimeograph machines. So how did Edison know to use this process to go observe people going about their business, monitor the way that they worked, figure out what their business value was, identify their pains, identify their goals, and then iterate until something worked? Well, it wasn't his first rodeo. In 1865, Edison had a bright idea. He had read about the way that votes were tabulated in congressional meetings and local committee meetings all across the United States. And he thought to himself, well, there's got to be a better way. I'm an inventor. I'll invent something. And he did. He invented the electronic vote recorder. And then he took it to Congress and shopped it around. And one congressman said to him, if there is any invention on earth that we don't want down here, that is it. Edison didn't just fail. He failed literally by an act of Congress. Not a legal act, but still. And from that day forward, he wrote, he redefined success for his inventions. If it didn't have a customer, if it wouldn't be used to produce value in business, he wouldn't consider it a success, and he wouldn't try to create it. He learned the mistake of looking at a problem from the outside with very little background information and say, I'm going to ride in on my horse and solve that problem. I'm going to build an invention. I'm going to disrupt that industry, that practice that's been in place forever. He learned that that just doesn't work, that you have to focus on the customer's pains as seen by the customer. Figure out what the customer actually wants. Maybe voting was slow, but the congressman didn't care. So there was no dream. When you know their actual pain from observation, from study, and you know what they value, what they want, what they dream from study and extrapolation, then you can start to talk product. How can you fix their pain? How can you deliver them from pain to dream? How can you build that bridge? Now, we've been looking at the canvas for a long time, and you've probably noticed that down in the fixed category, product is just one little thing, about the same level as e-bombs or email sequences. But of course, this can't be true. And it's not. There's a lot that goes into a product. The good news is you've already got some of it, and there's a step-by-step process for getting the rest of that research, getting the rest of that information, and a process for using that information to generate infinite potential products, enough to fill an entire career. It all starts with a crispy pain and dream, and we just covered why. Now, these are not something new that you have to go out and get. These are things that you have from your Safari, from Painstorming, and from your Reversal. You're set on this data. You only have to select them. Next up, information, research about the causes of the pain and the components or parts that are involved in the pain and the business around the pain. And you'll get these via a process we call interrogation. Yes, you're going to sit in a dark room and shine a bright light at the problem and demand to know where it was on the night of June 8th. Lastly, you need a list of the methods and the formats in general, but also specifically as applied to these problems. And you're going to combine them together to come up with nearly infinite product concepts via a process we call fixed storming. And that's exactly how you're going to move through the next few lessons. We're going to start at the top, selecting Crispy Pain and Dream, a single one. Move through causes, parts, methods, and formats. Like the rest of the canvas, each of these blocks represents components or parts, information, research, but there's also a process. And it is 3 steps. The first step is to isolate, using your Safari data to get crispy. When you go through the process to generate fixes, you want to focus on just one very specific pain and it's one very specific dream. If you don't get specific, then all the rest of the steps are going to be soggy, vague, and hard to nail down, which means that building that product and selling that product will be too difficult. So once you've got your very specific pain and dream, you're going to really interrogate the daylights out of it. You're going to figure out via research, what kind of pain is it? What type? What things cause the pain? What are the components? What are the parts? What mistakes do people make? What knowledge do they have or lack? What skills or beliefs do they have or lack? What tools are involved? This section involves a lot of questioning, but this is the basis of a really powerful and insightful fix. Lastly, fix storm. A fix storm is where you combine systematically the types of fix, like education and equipment and so on, and the formats such as written, video, software, service. And then when you've completed this process for one pain and one dream, well, start over with another pain and another dream. This is how you create enough fix concepts to last you your entire career, to build an enormous business if that's what you choose to do. So this is a lot to take in. This is why I said it's complex. But for now, let's take a quick look at a real-world example. Way back when, we talked about Scoop Free, and we did a little safari on cat lovers. So we got our orbit here. Cat lovers, what do they need, want, and buy? In other words, what pains do they have? Well, it's a major pain for cat lovers to come home at the end of a long day and their house smells. They weren't there. There wasn't anything they could do about it. Their cat poop smells, and it smells a lot. What do they want? Well, what would they really love to hear from the mouth of a friend? You have a cat? I'd never guess. They want to walk in their front door at the end of a long day, maybe with a guest, and not feel embarrassed by the smell. They want to walk in and it smells good, and they don't want to think about poop the second they get home. What do they buy? Well, they buy all kinds of things. We know this from our safari. But what can we sell them? Well, that's where the process comes in. So we'll pick our one pain, that poop smell when you come home after a long day. Our one dream, it smells great in here. You have a cat? And then we'll figure out what to sell them. So we've done step 1. We know what our individual crispy pain and crispy dream are. Now it's time to interrogate the problem space. This involves a lot of questions. What kind of poop smells? What causes poop smells when you get home? What kind of poop doesn't smell, if there is such a thing? What parts are involved in the poop smell? Is there knowledge that can eliminate poop smell? What about skills or beliefs? Are there tools that can eliminate poop smell? Now, not every question applies to every problem space, but oftentimes if a question seems silly, the answers can still be useful. For example, what kind of poop smells? The kind of poop that's been sitting out all day. There's a hint. Once you've answered these questions, and the entire list of questions is in a later lesson, you go through each of the 6 methods and ask yourself, how can I apply this method to help my customer go from pain to dream? How can I educate them to move from pain to dream? How can I equip them, create tools for them to move from pain to dream? How can I support them emotionally or with community to move from pain to dream? How can I provide access to things or people that they otherwise couldn't reach that will get them from pain to dream? How can I help them outsource this problem entirely so they don't even have to deal with it to get from pain to dream? How can I eliminate the pain at the source and get rid of it entirely? Just route around it. And you start at the top and you come up with not super specific answers. Can you educate them about cleaning, deodorizing, or preventing poop smells? Can you educate their cat about something? Can you eliminate the problem entirely? And at this stage, it's critical for every idea or question or answer that comes to mind, just get it out there, no matter how ridiculous or impossible it seems. For example, one way to get rid of poop smell is to get rid of your cat. If you have no cat, there can be no cat poop smell, ipso facto. But your audience isn't likely to be real fond of that idea. Maybe you could find a way to make your cat not poop. Probably not, though, not in a, humane fashion. Maybe you could make the poop itself go away and eliminate the problem that way. Well, now we're talking. This sounds promising. So let's start to think about applying the formats. Because poop is a physical problem, you would say a hardware problem, let's talk about hardware solutions to poop. And that brings us to several potential products, including an auto-scooping litter box. Yay! And that's what Scoop Free ended up doing. That's how they tackled the poop problem with hardware, specifically with a mechanized litter box that scoops the poop away so that when you come home, it was like it was never there. There's a special container, the poop goes in, and then it closes, and then the smell stays locked up until you empty it. Before you tell me that you can't create a mechanical device in your garage yet, I understand. You don't have to. Because of the 6 major methods and the almost infinite format possibilities, you don't need to be able to create hardware. There's more than one way, and you can come up with many different ways. And fixes come in all sizes, from epic hardware that does it for you to tiny little educational snippets on your blog that help attack a problem in a small way. From supplements that help the cat poop smell less bad to start with, to filters for litter boxes, a filter that works better than the kind that comes, well, out of the box, to deodorizer that you can put in any litter, to special odor-fighting litter and litter box combos that don't have any kind of motor. There are blog posts about how to get that smell out of the litter box itself for free, using onions for some reason. And there's advice on how changing your cat's diet might really be the solution, and not pictured, for sake of your delicate constitution, are courses and tools to help your cat learn to use the toilet, the human toilet, which you can flush. There's more than one way to skin a cat poop. So that was a lot to take in. Don't freak out if it didn't all cement itself in your brain just yet. In the next few lessons, we're gonna get crispy.